long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars fans were united. But then came The Last Jedi, and suddenly that galaxy didn't feel so peaceful anymore. Welcome to Memeobi's Galaxy, the show where we deep dive into Star Wars universe, from the heights of Hoth to the depths of Dagobah. I am your host, Memeobi, and today we're talking about one of the most divisive films in the entire saga, The Last Jedi. Now, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like The Last Jedi. From Luke's portrayal to Canto Bight Detour, it wasn't my favorite, but today I have someone on to defend the movie. He is here to explain why he believes The Last Jedi is actually better than we remember. So we're not holding back. We're hitting all the hot button topics. So join us today on this special episode of Memeobi's Galaxy. I am joined today by my friend Michael. How are we doing today?
Fantastic.
Okay, so before we get to know you personally, I'm going to have you do some Star Wars trivia for The Last Jedi specifically. Are we ready?
I mean, as ready as I'll ever be, I guess.
Perfect. Easy starter. What year did it release?
Oh, crap. I'm going to go with 16.
That is incorrect. It's 2017.
I was off by one.
Yeah, they do they did odd years for the prequels.
Of course they did.
The sequels. All right, question number 2. What is the name of the casino, planet, or city?
Canto Bight.
Correct. What actor plays Snoke?
Andy Serkis.
That is correct. Do you know what Rose's sister's name is? The one that dies early in the film.
Oh, this was in the director's commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Victoria or something along those lines?
It is Paige.
Yeah, way off. All right.
And this last question is hard, but it's kind of up to debate on the answer. So,
Perfect.
Who convinces Luke Skywalker to end up training Rey?
Yoda, wouldn't it be?
No, the answer that we've discovered is R2-D2.
Sure.
Because he goes on the on the Millennium Falcon, as we see here, and then he talks to him, shows him a clip of, and then he ends up training Rey right after that. So that is what we've decided. It's kind of vague.
Yeah.
But you got like 3.
Yeah.
Which is like better than my first guest I had on here, which got like 1.
Was your guest you?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
No, it was a guy on about episode 3, and he just in my mind, a lot of things are common knowledge.
Right.
And they're not to
Perfect.
everyone.
Yep.
And I kind of forget that. So before we jump into it, let's get to know you slightly.
Yeah.
You like Star Wars somewhat. What is your do you know what your earliest memory with Star Wars is?
So you prepped me with this question, and I had to do some deep dive and online research because I have visual memories from when I was very little, but I couldn't place what they were. And I think my first experience would be a storybook that was put out in conjunction with Ewok Adventures.
Okay, yeah.
So which is like the family that ends up on Endor, and the parents get trapped on a spaceship. And so it came with a little 33 1/3 record.
Okay, yep.
And so that is my first memory. And then in conjunction, actually seeing that as a TV movie.
Yeah.
On the physical side, we had a family friend who was probably in his 20s at that point. To me, he was super old,
Yep.
but he gave us his used Millennium Falcon toy.
Okay.
So this would have been the 79 to 83,
Yep.
one of those models. Didn't have all its parts, but thought it was awesome, but didn't know in what context it was.
Yep.
And then as well as the Ewok Village from Return of the Jedi.
That's sweet.
So I had both of those. So the little net trap in the Ewok Village captured a lot of G.I. Joes.
Yep.
Because that's what I had.
That's cool.
So those are my 2 earliest memories.
Nice. And then from that, did you become a big Star Wars fan, or was it more like a casual thing until how did that go? For the prequels and stuff like that and the sequels? The
originals, I was telling my wife, I don't actually remember the first time I watched those.
Okay.
They probably would have been a TV aired version, edited for screen and time. But as I got older, they became pretty constant viewing, whether it be rentals or a friend's house who had the VHS. The prequels came out, and this is going to age me a bit, when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't have as much of a nostalgia attachment to those.
But were you on the side of being very upset about them, or were you not that far into the fandom at the time?
I was friends with people who were very excited for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember a bunch of us went to a airing of Harry Potter.
Okay.
I think the first one, because the episode for one of the might have been the second one, aired with that, and we went to movie theater just to see the trailer. We
Yep.
sat through a whole movie none of us cared about at that point.
Yeah.
Just to watch the trailer. Turns out it didn't air within that particular theater. Like,
Nice.
theater 3
Mm-hmm. Yep.
didn't air it, whereas 5 and 6 did. So we sat through a whole movie. We're like, is it going to be at the end? Is it good? How special is this trailer?
That's
And
so funny.
nothing.
Yeah, that would have been like, 2001 probably for episode 2, which came out into, yeah, okay. Perfect. Wow. Well, that's fun. Well, interesting. So, you've seen all the Star Wars movies. And
Multiple times.
We're here to talk about The Last Jedi. Like I said, very polarizing film
Yes.
at the time. So, we're not going to talk about, like, in previous episodes, I just do a deep dive in the whole movie.
Okay.
We're not doing that here. We're going to talk about just more the key points and the most controversial topics.
Perfect.
We will start with the first most controversial topic, I would say. Just jump into it to not beat around the bush. So I have a question from Mark Chaprin on Instagram who says, this is to you directly. It says, so you like the representation of Luke in this movie? Question mark.
So I think I understand it. I don't know
Okay.
if it's, nobody, I don't think anyone feels like that's what they expected going into that movie, that this is what Luke was going to be portrayed as.
Yeah.
I think it was unexpected for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so watching it and rewatching it,
Mm-hmm.
I understand it.
Okay.
I think I understand, at least I feel like I understand what the director was trying to do in the way he was telling that story.
Okay.
I can also see why people are super upset by it.
Right. I mean, yeah, so like the reason people are upset, I mean, everyone knows, I think, is because we all have this ideal of Luke, right? Which I'm all for. I mean, I'm pretty open-minded. I'm pretty okay with people making choices to change things and not make them as perfect as we want them to be. Right. But the issue with Luke is he is such an iconic character that has so much lore built around him, what he did do in the extended universe and all the books. So going into it, so it's different than like when people were mad about episode 1, there was nothing written about that era. So no one had they had pre-ideas of like, oh, what it could be, what it might be. But there wasn't like hundreds of books and video games going into very great detail of what Luke would be. So I think that's probably why it came across worse than it should have. But yeah, I mean, the Luke thing, I don't know. It's it's difficult to stomach, I guess, for me.
Totally get it. So in kind of doing the research, I came across this idea that I run into in like comic book creation for fandom. When you have these characters like Spider-Man or Batman that have 70 years of storytelling, you're writing to an audience that has preconceptions about who this character is, but they still have to sell the comics. You can't break the character. You can't do anything that's irreparable. Yeah. So you're constantly in this cycle of how do we create the illusion of change without change, with always figuring out a way for an on-ramp to fix it or get him back to what everybody thinks he should be or they should be. And I think at this point, we're there with Luke, where in a lot of the Star Wars universe. And I think, at least with Rian Johnson, from what I can see, is he loves those characters. It's not like he wants to damage them or hurt them or, desecrate their memory. Yeah. But I feel like he is trying to break that cycle. Like, how do we get off this train? How do we change things in a way that we can move on from the Skywalker cycle? We can move on from these characters. We can still have Star Wars, but we don't necessarily have to have everybody on pedestals.
And I do get that. So my issue with, like, I like Rian Johnson. I like some of his movies, not all of them. And I like the idea of subverting expectations.
Right.
But my issue with the movie as a whole was they just did it continuously. Like the whole, like every single, like it's like if it was just the Luke thing, I think I'd be more on board with the movie overall.
Yeah.
But there was too many other things that kind of like didn't make sense or were just like too, I don't know. It felt like nothing kind of happens in the movie because nothing monumental happens in the entire movie that affects the final film.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this,
Yeah.
I think, before this, is we have what we have. Like, we have the film after. We don't necessarily have what people, what the creators thought, there was going to be a different director.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what the plans, we don't know all of what the plans were for it. We have, what the next director decided to take from the last one. And so I feel like some of those repercussions or some of those decisions were either walked back or...
Yeah. Which is it's definitely a bummer because you can definitely tell that like it's really hard to make a movie that's not yours, right?
Right.
So George Lucas made movies that he wanted to make.
Yeah.
And now people are trying to remake his movies and try to get the nostalgia, try to get the same feel. I think there was just like a managerial issue with the overall trilogy. Like, it's just not the best idea to have write one movie. It's like, okay, we'll just write the second one later.
Right.
I don't know where it's going. Like, it should have been like someone wrote down the 3 movies, or like, okay, episode 2, it needs to start here and end here. Whatever else you do, we don't care, but it has to hit like this, and this. Like the whole point with like Rey being a nobody in The Last Jedi, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Like she has to like make her own identity and like figure her way in the galaxy. But then they walked it back.
Right.
Crazily in the few, like I've been watching like reviews on YouTube and stuff about this movie, but all their positive things were things that all got retconned in The Last Jedi.
Because they were strong moves. Like, I totally get wanting to make strong moves.
Yeah.
And I would prefer a movie that makes moves that either are going to make people hate it or love it.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate for a movie to be just meh. Like, yeah, it was fine.
For sure.
So I would actually lean towards, I hate like these strong, visceral reactions, because he did, Ryan and all the team did something that caused an emotional reaction. Like they made strong enough choices. In this case, a lot of people hated it.
Right. And I think that's what I'm saying. I think it's much more than just the Luke thing. I think that was like, it started with that.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of continued from that. Because I do think Rian Johnson could have made a good Star Wars movie if it was like Solo or like the Rogue One, like a standalone.
Right.
And just like subvert all the expectations you want over there. But it's like taking Lord of the Rings and having the middle one just be slightly different genre than the rest of them, and having like time lapse and random stuff.
Right.
It takes away from the overall trilogy.
Right. Because there's no roadmap. Like you said, it didn't feel like there was a roadmap through 7 through 9. It was, we're making this movie and we're making this movie. Well, they did a bunch of stuff in this movie, so we have to, for the third one, we've got to either address it or sweep it under the rug. Yeah. And so it definitely felt mismatched.
Yeah. It felt like, because there's a lot of questions were presented in The Force Awakens. Yeah. And then nothing was answered in The Last Jedi. Pretty much nothing.
Right.
Overall. And then they have to like kind of figure everything out in the last movie. So, but I don't think it's completely Rian Johnson's fault completely, because The Force Awakens, people kind of overall like, The Force Awakens was fine or was good.
Yeah, it was fine.
But I do think The Force Awakens ruined the rest of them because it ended on a cliffhanger.
Okay.
So since it ended with getting to Luke, that means your opening crawl of The Last Jedi has nothing to talk about.
Right.
Because if it ends giving it to Luke and it starts there, it's like, we're still here. Like, that's all. Like, so
what happened?
That opening crawl is like very fluff. Like, they're still chasing them. Like, so just even the openings, it's like, oh man, it's like nothing's happened. It's kind of a bummer. There's no time jump, because like we get that with the Rise of Skywalker, where it's like, oh, you feel like there's some like camaraderie, like people get to know each other. But at this point, Poe shouldn't like Finn. They saw each other for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
and he gave him his jacket for some reason. I don't know why. And like they shouldn't be friends. Rey, I mean, yeah, Finn is like Rey's only friend, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It felt forced, but I mean, you could put a time jump in your movie, but I think they weren't wanting to because most Star Wars movies don't put time jumps in them. They're normally just a week or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's slightly The Force Awakens' fault that they couldn't put a time jump. Like I almost think Force Awakens, they wanted the Mark Hamill in The Force Awakens real bad.
Right.
So, but they didn't want to give him a full like, hey, I want to train you, because they wanted to leave that to somebody else, I guess.
Yeah.
So in my mind, they either should have said hi and then started training in The Force Awakens, and then we like get to like, oh wow, she's super powerful now, or just like on her way. Because if it did, this is the Force Awakens topic at this point. It kind of
I didn't prep for this movie.
Listen, it kind of undermined the whole like we can never find Luke, and she just gets in the Millennium Falcon and finds him like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
60 seconds later, he's just there. Oh yeah, he's on the island, easy.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that is not the movie I'm talking about right now.
Right.
We're talking about The Last Jedi. I apologize.
We'll get there.
We will. Luke, I don't know. Yeah, I've rewatched it a few times. I had a.
Was it painful?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
But I watched it over like 5 days. While
You had to split it up.
Not while I was driving to and from work every day.
That's probably wise.
I did go through a point where I thought maybe I don't like the sequels because I haven't watched them enough. So I was like, I'm just going to grind and just watch these over and over and over, which wasn't the best thing I should have done.
Sounds like a masochistic thing. Like
I just thought maybe I was like, I just need to know them because I don't know them like the prequels and the original. Like I know those movies.
Right.
I know every scene. I know almost every like I don't know every dialogue, but I know most of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know the sequel, so I was like, I should just watch them all. But The Last Jedi is always harder to get through for me.
Okay.
I feel like I want to skip a lot.
Okay.
I want to hit that 10-second button real bad, which is not what they want you to feel in a movie.
Right.
I don't know. But like you said, like you understand Luke's, like the way they did it. And I am getting to that point where I kind of like, I get it. But I just felt like they didn't handle it well.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he was, I don't know, he hinted to him like closing himself off to the Force so people couldn't find it, but they didn't say that.
Right.
And I feel like they should just spell it out more than just kind of hinting to things.
Well, and that was something I picked up from the director's commentary because they're rewatching that the other night.
Yeah.
When Ryan Johnson was talking about it, when I first watched it, it felt like a fear-based thing. Like my actions, the repercussions, it's based off fear of what could happen. Mm-hmm. The way he couched it was he put himself in exile because he felt that increasing more Jedi just continues the cycle of this dark side, light side battle. And so removing himself from the situation was what he thought was best for the situation because it breaks the cycle. And I hadn't really thought about it in that context. And I think that helped me understand it even a little bit more. Yeah. Looking at it through that lens. Because then it is, I am cutting myself off from my friends for the betterment of the galaxy. So it's less, he was afraid, he made bad decisions out of fear. It was a more heroic context. But it still is like you said, it could have maybe been clearer stated. Like I get like they like obviously can't just like have him say this like you can't just spell it out completely and just give like a bunch of backstory and stuff. I mean you could, but I think maybe handling it better or like at least saying he's like the reason I don't know just a little bit more. I'm fine with old grumpy Luke. That's like it doesn't bother me that much and like the Jedi text and stuff. It's like it's cool I guess. I mean we have precedent for grumpy hermetic guides. With Yoda or even Ben to some context. Yeah, I think it's great, but I don't know. It just he was real grumpy. And I don't know. It's like I don't really know what I wanted him to do. Like I don't know what would the perfect scenario be. Maybe not drink the blue milk. I mean, no, well the green milk from the sirens. Yeah, that was one of my options of questions. I found out the commentary. Those were practical. Like they flew them in, which was just wild, and I love that. Yeah, no, they did do a lot of practical things that I think were cool. And like I think it's fine. He's milking a cow. He lived on a farm. He likes blue milk. He's he's a farm guy. He lives just doing his thing. Just seemed a little gratuitous.
It was a little bit. It was a little gruff. It was a little rough. I do think they could have. I don't know. We just didn't get any answers to anything. Like, I know it's like, oh, this is like an original Jedi temple, but what does that mean? Like, what? I don't know. Like some backstory to this. Who are these caretakers? Like specifically, like I know they're caretakers, sure, but I don't know. If just it made everyone have way more questions with no answers,
Right?
Which was, I think, frustrating because you don't really want people to leave your movie frustrated. You have to have something to be like, wow,
some realization.
And I think they did that because in the final battle they did like a reprise from like the trench scene. I think the music.
Oh, okay.
I was watching it today, and when they're flying the Millennium Falcon, it's the same music. I'm like, oh, is this just a nostalgia? Like, just forget everything else that happened in this movie. Yeah. It's all happy now, and we're fighting, and there's, I don't know. Luke is definitely the biggest hang up. Everything else is just like extra things that make people angry on top of it.
Yeah.
I think if it was just Luke, we would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the rest, which we can go into now. Such as my biggest complaint is Canto Bite. So the whole movie, let me just summarize the movie for you.
Perfect.
The rebels run away, they land, and then they leave. And that's the entire movie.
Okay.
Right? They go into space.
Very boiled down.
I mean, because Finn and Rose going to the Canto Bite does nothing for the overall story. It doesn't take down the shields on the ship.
Right.
It doesn't do anything. They just have to escape later.
Right.
It's complete filler in my mind.
Okay.
It shows I mean, I get it shows like, oh, there's guys delivering like spaceships to both sides of of like the rebellion and the bad guy, the good guys and bad guys. I get that, but it would have been like, okay, you learned all that and you helped, but they learned all that and then just nothing worked.
Gotcha.
Right. So like they end up, they go on the ship, it blows up and they escape and they land and then they fight and then don't fight and then they leave. I don't know. I Canto Bite.
Yes.
Everything could have been solved if they didn't park on the beach.
Yeah. The beach was a bad parking spot.
Because if they didn't park there, they would have met the master code breaker with the rose lapel or whatever.
But also, wasn't it crashed? It
did crash.
If I remember right, it didn't look like it was necessarily like, this is where we want to land.
But they were trying to go back to it.
Yeah.
To fly off the planet.
Right.
They were trying to.
Because that's their one option.
That was their one option. So like Canto Bite's fine. Like it's, Casino City, some crazy aliens. That's like whatever, cool. Yeah. You get some diegetic music, you get some in-world music, and it's like it's cool. I don't even like what's the guy's name with the lisp or whatever. I don't even care about that guy. Whatever.
Oh, DJ?
Yeah, DJ. That's fine. Yeah. He's great. Whatever.
Benicio del Toro is fantastic.
Sure.
Anything he does.
Sure. Like that's all fine. My biggest problem with Canto Bite is the horses. One,
the space horses.
The space horses do feel very, like it's slightly an agenda.
Okay.
Slightly. But my main problem is, well, you see, you have these slave children, and you have horses that are racing.
Yes.
Which one should we save? How about the horses? And then they make the slave children help them, who will probably be punished because it's very obviously they helped. And then they let the horses go into the field. Wow, they're free until tomorrow when they go pick them back up. So in my mind, they didn't do anything to help anyone. They tore they put her fist through the beautiful city, whatever they said.
Yeah.
The line.
Yeah.
That's my issue.
I do. Yes, I completely understand.
Like they're rich. They're gonna recover quick.
Yes, or find other ones.
Correct.
But I think if that's where your mind's at, one, it's probably not where it's supposed to be at in the story.
Sure.
Like you're supposed to probably be like cheering them on for freeing them.
Right.
And that might have been maybe not the best way to do that. Because I think that whole situation really gives insight into Rose. I think a lot of those scenes give you insight through Finn, their conversations on who she is.
Yeah.
And I think the hard part is a lot of that stuff was not followed up on.
Yeah.
And it's again going back to that. We have the movies we have, not necessarily what was planned or
right.
I believe her scenes were supposed to be with Leia.
Yeah, and they got cut.
And yeah. And so all of that character building, they're putting her in a place where you get to learn about her history, her character. But then due to, circumstances outside of the whole movie,
yes,
we don't get that stuff.
Correct.
So it feels like nothing was done.
Right.
Because the end result is we don't get the cathartic follow-up of all of that.
Yeah, I think it could have been handled better if it was posed as like the only option to escape, like this crazy escape using the horses.
Right.
But it didn't really feel like that was their only. Like it was like, oh, this is an option, but it's like, oh, we could just sneak out quietly out the back door. Right. But if it was like maybe posed more like this is the only option out and like this big heroic thing, and they didn't jump through walls, that would probably be better. They do jump through a wall at one point, and no one really talks about that. They like jumping through stuff's fine, but they jump through like a wall.
Might have been poorly constructed.
Yeah, and they are space horses.
They are space horses.
So you never know what those things are up to.
They have strong bones.
They have very weak walls. They were not using Durasteel. They were using something else. Paper mache. Who knows? Yeah. But I don't know. That's my main problem with Canto Bight.
I could see that. Yeah, I think with the context of the whole, sequels, the set of sequels, it feels unnecessary.
It felt like they should bring those horses back for the finale of Rise of Skywalker instead of just another space horse.
Yeah, different.
That would have been
space
like
pony.
Yeah, that would have been like a better like, oh look, it's the ones we freed or like whatever. Like they have like an arc or something instead of just another space horse.
Yeah, and I think that's there is no callback to that in the rest of the sequels. There may have been, but we don't know, and so I feel like in the movies we have. It feels like it does nothing. Yeah. And that's hard because you feel like there should have been either callbacks or
like a little something like, oh, they shut down the shield or something to get like something
that happened. Well, even just in how the character growth happens, their relationship, Finn and Rose, because that just seems to go nowhere.
Yeah. Because it was all right. Like it was fine. Like them like getting to know each other. Like that was cool. I think it was like whatever, but sorry, not whatever. I think it was cool. But again, like, in the movies we have in the Rise of Skywalker, nothing came of that. Right. Rose got like no screen time because they cut all her scenes because like the Leia stuff. Yeah. Now I'm debating which way to go because there's like three things I could go off of right there. Let's go with Finn. Okay. I don't like Finn, by the way.
At all, like through the whole.
He's my least favorite main character from the sequels. Okay. I think he should have died in this movie. And here's why. His purpose in my mind was he is an ex-stormtrooper. Yep. Phasma was like his like arch nemesis. He kills Phasma. Yes. And boom, she's gone. And now he has this moment to sacrifice himself to blow up this giant cannon on Crate or whatever it's called. Yep. And then Rose somehow catches up with him. I don't know how that works. Anyways, they're driving the same speeder. She got faster than him. Anyways.
They're all really crappy.
Continuity. His was just really terrible. Hers was way better, I guess. And her whole line is like, we can't just like be sacrificing ourselves or whatever, right? When not 2 hours earlier, Captain Holdo does the exact same thing and also blows the ship up or whatever. Right. I won't talk about that in a second. But saves them, but no one stopped her. No one got mad at her when he could have. In my mind, it was a big epic buildup, and it almost felt like another subverting of expectations. Yeah. It's like just let some expectations happen. That's what I felt like. So that's why it was slightly frustrating. But I do think his like arc was done in my mind. It's like, oh yeah, he did the thing. He grew. He became a better person. Now he can just die.
He can sacrifice himself as a hero.
That's what I thought he should do, but. Alas, that is what we got.
Yeah, I think that scene, because I feel like because I think Rose says we don't fight or kill the things we hate, we save the things we love, something along those things. And I feel like Holdo did both of those things with the Holdo maneuver or whatever they want to call it from now on. I feel like she was saving the one she loved the only way she had in that circumstance. Yeah. That was the only way left to her to save them. So I feel like she was saving the ones she loved by doing the thing. I think, man, it's just so hard with Rose because it feels like there's just so much there.
Yeah, I know.
Because it feels like either Finn sacrifices himself, and then he's the hero. He gets to die hero. Because in that we also see Poe like saying, "Veer off. Like we're not doing this," which is learning the lessons that Leia was trying to teach him at the beginning. And so he's grown, which is great to see.
Yep.
And I feel like Finn has also grown in terms of he's now willing to sacrifice himself as the hero. And I feel like either he should have died in that, and then he gets to be celebrated a hero, you know, and then Rey can go on a vengeance tour or whatever.
Yeah, or even Rose. Rose gets like more excited for her stuff now.
So, or that leads him and Rose into like cementing that relationship as a romantic relationship.
Yeah, which they tried to almost.
Which it feels like this is the direction we're going because Rey is going to end up with Kylo.
Right. Yeah.
And so that breaks that relationship. Finn's fascination with Rey gives him an alternate out, which I feel is also a play they could have made, but it's not the movies we got. So it does feel like this is the way we're going to go. Oh wait, we're just not going to do any of it
again.
And so
too
I think
many writers, too many cooks in the kitchen, they say.
Well, and you know, Rian Johnson, I think historically has been very, I am the writer. You know, he's leading the stories. So I feel like just in general with the Lucasfilm, you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And these are the decisions we're making. But I feel like that these three movies were the lead into, hey, we're going to do all these TV shows. We're going to do all these things. And then realizing, oh man, this is too many directions. We've got to pull back. And I think this is kind of early days for that where, we're giving you each a movie. They all have the same characters, but have your creative freedom so that you could get talent like Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams on board because you're giving them the creative freedom to do something in a universe they love. Without saying, oh, you can't do this with this character. This character has to be here.
Right.
And so I think that was a big sell for a lot of those creators. Not that they wouldn't have wanted to anyways because it's Star Wars. But, I think it was, again, lack of a through line or a blueprint for the whole three. Yeah,
that's why I definitely stand by. I think Rian Johnson. I don't want him to touch Star Wars again. A lot of people do, but I'm like, he had his chance, and everybody hated it. I don't want to give him. There's other directors out there, man.
Yeah, but I
wanted him to because I wanted a standalone because I think it could be cool. But also, I'm like, you didn't do the thing. Yeah. Because everybody hated it. So like it may be good standalone, maybe good movie, but like if the fan base, which is a very intense fan base, hates you now and I know people that won't watch any of his movies because of it.
And that's so sad because like, and that's, going into this movie, I was predisposed to love it because I'm having trouble coming up with a movie that I didn't like love of his, like from Brick all the way on. Yeah. Some of them aren't like, these are a pleasure to rewatch. Like Looper is an amazing movie, but it's not like a pleasant movie to sit through.
Correct.
Because of all of the things. But it was like, oh, this is fascinating. Yeah. And an awesome movie. So I was predisposed to love this. And so I went in trusting his decisions.
Right.
Or his decision-making capability.
Yep.
And like, seeing him take on something like Skeleton Crew or something like that where it doesn't have to be connected to the larger universe. I would love to see that. But I can also see where it's going to be a hard sell based off The Last Jedi. Yeah, and that's definitely why Solo struggled after this because it came out the next year, I believe. Yeah. It came out in 2018, and then everybody boycotted that. So it did terrible, and that ended up them like not they stopped their production on any other standalone movies, like the Boba Fett movie. Yeah, because of Solo. But it was mainly because people didn't like The Last Jedi and they boycotted. Well, also, if I remember right, they had to switch directors halfway through Solo because Chris Lord and I can't remember the other guy's name, but the guys who did the Lego movie, they were involved with Spider-Verse movies. So great directors, but from what I remember is they had it was too funny of a take. Like their implementation was too much humor, too silly. Yeah. And so they brought in Ron Howard to kind of course correct. again, Solo is a fine movie. It's not like groundbreaking and it definitely has its faults.
Yeah.
That can be a whole nother thing. I'm sure you'll have plans.
It's real close to Last Jedi on my ranking list. It's neck and neck for me, but that is just because of. Anyways,
but it's a movie. It's a fine watching experience.
It did the exact opposite of The Last Jedi, where it answered too many questions that nobody had.
Here's these questions nobody's asking. We're going to give you the answer.
How to get his dice? Well, he's kind of already had them. Anyways,
you don't need all of it.
But the answer, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not talking Solo,
right?
Because
back to Last Jedi, the Holdo maneuver. I believe you want to talk about.
We can talk the Holdo maneuver. That it ruins all space battles forever.
So, as a visual storyteller, both through illustration and graphic design, my initial response to that complaint is that it ruins. I don't care.
It was really cool.
It was, like the instant that scene happened, I can pinpoint my emotional response to that. I was stunned both by the action, but the visual, the cutting out of all sound, the complete black and white. It was stunning and an amazing visual. So, we can talk about that. It ruins space maneuvers, but we're also in a universe where laser swords cut everything but other lasers.
Well, okay. Listen, I get the point, but at least they're consistent. So I think there's everything, retrospectively, hindsight, all that jazz. If maybe they would have made it look harder, like she was really running around, like changing things, wiring things, like really going for it, like having to manually do something. Like computer wouldn't let. I don't know if there was like a little bit more pizzazz in it to make it seem like, because they mention it in the Rise of Skywalker. It's like, what about the Holdo maneuvers? Like, it's a chance in a million.
Right.
Like, there's no way to do it again.
I feel if they went that direction though, to make it look more physically difficult or technically difficult, it undercuts the emotion of her having to make that decision. In that scene, so I think that would undercut the character moment. If you're more concerned with the technical aspect of it. Yeah,
I mean, in The Force Awakens, they jump out of hyperspace inside of a force field on a planet. Well, wait, a little bit.
Well, and then Rise of Skywalker, their light speed skipping.
Which is like that. That one doesn't bother me as much because it's kind of cool. But the whole maneuvers. It is beautiful. No one denies that it looks great. Right. But it does. If you take a second and be like, wait a minute, why don't we just do this all the time?
Well, I mean, you only have so many ships. Like, if we're talking like...
I know, but you got a lot of droids. And
it's true.
You could make a lot of, like, just kamikaze ships.
But then we go down... That's like a dark hole of, like, how do you sustain building that many ships to support multiple holdover maneuvers? And then you're getting into, like... the economy. How do we spend? How do we make enough money to build this many ships?
I agree, but it doesn't make me like it anymore. Sadly.
That's all right. It's okay. We can diverge on this.
I mean, it's cool. I will agree. It looked really cool, and it was neat.
When something is that awesome on screen, it's a filmmaker's decision. It's a visual storytelling medium. I'm gonna lean in the supporting if it succeeds in that side of things.
I also think that, I don't know, so Holdo,
everyone,
so the two most hated characters from the movie are Holdo and Rose. People were very mad at Rose and they said terrible things about it on the internet, and they were really terrible, but that's just standard these days for Star Wars. Sadly, people are very mean to people they don't like,
right,
for some reason, and I wish we could just stop that. I'm just going to put that out there. Let's stop being mean to actors who are doing their job.
Yeah, I mean, it is a job. They're hired. You're an actor. Mm-hmm. It is for a fictional universe.
Yep.
It is.
People are silly. So, Holdo, she's fine. But
how can you hate Laura Dern? She's amazing.
Well, I don't hate her. Okay. I don't hate her.
Back to the actress.
I hate the
Okay.
The character.
The role.
I don't care about the actress. She's whatever to me. I didn't know her before, so I had no
Jurassic Park?
I had no Oh, yeah, she is, isn't she?
Yeah. October Sky?
Well, she had purple hair. I didn't notice it. They really did a good job of disguising her.
Right.
Apparently. Wow, I didn't realize that. That's funny. Anyways, I don't like her. I just didn't care about her character, so I'd never looked into her.
Right.
I think, like, I get her perspective is this guy is just like a captain who just got fired, basically, for Poe. Right.
Yeah.
So, like, why would I tell him anything?
Yeah.
But from a watching standpoint, right? We all get kept in the dark
Mhm.
until the end, which again is another thing that adds to the frustration of watching it.
Okay.
Like I get like it's like if it was just this one thing that was like being subverted and like frustrating, that'd be fine. But it's all on top of like, well, we're all frustrated from Luke, now we're all frustrated from Finn and Rose,
Mhm.
and now we're frustrated because we don't know what this lady's doing.
Mhm.
When it felt like she should have just said something originally,
Mhm.
where I don't know, it felt like it was just an egg on to the audience to like, and like I get it, but it's like it was almost too frustrating to be in the same side as Poe. When I feel like it did, I don't know, to me it didn't add, like I get it helps his character, I guess, but to me it's like if you just told us what's going on, like we'd all be on board, and she'd be like still be mad at him for like for Finn and Rose going off and doing their thing, and it doesn't affect them as much. I don't know. It was just frustrating to me, even on on rewatches. It's just like, ugh, just tell him already and stop. Just communicate.
But then I think it diffuses the tension and the conflict that leads to the rest of that, the dominoes of that situation. I think it helps put you more on Poe's side because you want what Poe wants.
Sure.
In this situation. And so that gets taken from Poe and us.
Mm-hmm.
So then it makes you feel better about mutiny.
Sure, but like,
so it puts you on the side of Poe, removing Holdo from authority or control or command, which I feel like may have been a bad decision in the end.
Yeah.
Because everything that happens afterwards is because he made that decision.
Yeah.
And I think if you didn't have that conflict between him and Holdo, you'd have even less stuff happening. That you're already complaining about stuff not happening.
We can add more later. But, I mean, yeah, I do get that it adds to stuff, but like,
I get your frustration.
It feels like they could just move on with, like, do we need more conflict between more people? Because we got like Rey and Luke having a conflict, and Rey and Kylo having a conflict, and Rose and them doing their thing, and then they're the First Order having their conflicts and stuff. Like, just a lot of conflict and a lot of like pieces moving around. Yeah. On like a 5-hour ride on a ship. I don't know. I get why. Like, I understand why. I don't like that they did. I feel like we could have done more and then had stuff after this. Like, instead of having them trapped on a ship the entire movie, they could have been done with that and moved on potentially.
So what you're saying is you just want a different movie.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I don't want this movie. This should be like 20 minutes and then we should get on to the
All right.
And I understand my side being slightly silly because it is, I mean, but again, it is like it's a franchise that's very like near and dear to my heart or whatever.
Of course.
But I didn't stop watching Rian Johnson movies. I didn't stop watching Finn movies. Whatever. And I don't hate people for what they did. I wasn't happy with Rian Johnson for a bit. I don't want him to touch Star Wars again.
Obviously.
But it's fine, I guess. My next hot take is Leia should have died. For sure should have died.
Oh, when she got blasted out of the...
Yeah, because it adds a weight to Kylo because he didn't do it, but then ends up she dies anyways.
Right.
Also, Carrie Fisher's passed away, so then it doesn't, because they kind of like handed the next movie like, all right, just figure it out. Good luck. Right. When it's like, maybe like, oh, she passed away, maybe we should recut it to where she's not in the finale or something, like changing the ending, reshoots, anything, because it's like handing it over to a whole movie where then
they have to
like dance around it and do like all this crazy stuff. Like, okay, here's the lines we have in the Rise of Skywalker. Like, let's figure it out from that.
Carrie Fisher passed away during. I can't remember.
It was before The Last Jedi came out.
Okay, all right. I couldn't remember if it was during production of the third one or during production of Last Jedi.
Well, we'll find out right now.
Ooh, Google.
It was December 27th, 2016.
Okay.
Which was 1 year before The Last Jedi came out.
Okay. So it was during that. I couldn't
They
remember.
had plenty of time.
Yes.
Well, they were rolling those movies out faster than, because traditionally, the status quo of Star Wars movies were 3 years.
Yeah.
And these were 2 years.
Yeah.
Because money.
All the money.
And
Disney.
And Disney, which is like fine. I don't know. I mean, that was great.
It's a business.
Got to watch more Star Wars. So that's great. No harm, no foul. But
Except that you seemed that this was both harm and foul for you, this movie.
Yeah. I tried to, because in my mind, if you just didn't watch this.
Yeah.
And then, like, if someone's watching the movies, be like, oh, yeah, they, like, Luke kind of trained her a little bit and then died. Okay. That's all that. I mean, yeah, Kylo becomes, there's Snoke. Ugh.
That is, yeah.
Snoke was a disappointment as well.
That is, like, I put down a few things. Like, no one sets out to make a bad movie.
For sure.
And no one sets out, I hope, to tell a bad story. Or, I'm sure there are people out there.
Yeah.
But, so I'm always, like, reticent to dump on a movie or I don't like this about a movie. So I'm always, but I feel like there was a lot of potential with Snoke.
Yeah, there
like
was.
Both from Force Awakens when he's huge in the hologram, like from a design perspective, how cool would it be to have like some giant alien, like Force user? That would have been awesome. And even his end result, I love the throne room, like the design of that room and that it was practical was lovely, and with the gold robes and everything, he's got some glam going on for a Sith, but he had a lot of potential. Like it didn't. The fact that it got undercut for another Palpatine felt like, oh, okay, well, we're back in that circle of trying to make things look like they're changing, but keeping them the same.
Yeah,
where that could have been a really interesting divergence. Mm-hmm. And I think all of my quibbles are mostly with the villains. So, like, Phasma, I felt, could have been used a lot more, and that would have maybe made Finn more interesting or gave him more to do if there was more of a conflict there. Because, again, her character's design is awesome.
Yeah.
Her charter
and she just walked around slowly in the first one.
Well, and she's a fantastic actress, so use that. But again, you get to see her 2 or 3 times, and then she falls to her death.
Yep.
And it feels a little lackluster for how much conflict there could have been there for Finn. But with Snoke, you have Andy Serkis. You have a pretty cool character design. And somebody knew that, you can't predict. You don't, it's not enough.
We know nothing.
Yeah, we didn't know anything. Super mysterious. We don't have thousands of pages of books about this line of Sith.
Yep.
He's somebody new. Awesome. Use him. And it just like, oh, you did a magic trick with the lightsaber to kill him. Yep. And it was just like, oh.
Yeah, bummer.
Yeah.
Like kind of tricked him with your mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people are going to agree it's like it's kind of a bummer because we don't it's a cool premise because while Luke was training him, they kind of hint to it that like Snoke had already been like hanging out with Ben Solo at the time. Yeah. And it's like, what? Yeah. What does that mean? But then like it's one of those other question marks that we had in The Force Awakens that just doesn't get answered. Oh, he's just dead now, I guess. Which is like, I feel like if they would have just resolved like a couple of the questions, like Rey being nobody, that's technically answering it, even though it turns out not
and I
true.
Love that.
It was cool.
I think that's better than what they ended up with.
Correct. I would agree. Because she's a nobody, and then no, just kidding. She's
a clone.
She's a daughter of a clone, a rogue clone. Anyways, that is a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Again, it's like
it's a weird family tree.
It's a very weird tree. It does not make any sense. It does, but again, it's just like I feel like they should just like let off some tension of like give us something,
some conclusion,
something to make us like oh. And then we can think about it. Now it's like we can think about it, but we don't really care because he's dead now. Because it's like it's not as interesting.
Yeah.
If you like either would have like survived or like fought of any kind, because he's super powerful, and then just like slice him in half.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer. So, I don't know. I think so. I was jumping around. Kylo is the only consistent thing in the sequels in my mind. He's the only one that's very consistent Ray's pretty good too, I guess.
Yeah.
Finn, I don't know. I don't like Finn. We already talked about that.
Yes.
I don't like Finn.
We've covered that ground.
But I do think Kylo and Adam Driver, I think he was pretty protective of his character.
Yeah.
And I do like that about him. Like he's like the only one for me that has like a really good arc to the whole movies that is compelling.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a problem. This is also another Rise of Skywalker issue that they should have kept him alive. And I think people would have been more okay with moving forward with more movies is if Kylo was alive, rather than Rey. I like Rey.
Yeah,
I have no problems with Rey. Other people have problems with Rey, but I like Kylo, and I think he does. I think he does a killer job in these movies.
Yeah, and I think having him survive may have undercut the sacrifice in that, his last minute switch from when he talked to Harrison Ford, he talked to Han Solo, and suddenly that switch, you see him turn back to being Ben. Yeah. And I think that's a great arc. I think if he survives, that undercuts that arc a little bit.
I think, listen, if Rian Johnson was going to subvert expectations, he just went for it. Rey should have just joined him. Like, let's just go for it. Let's just subvert and just kill people. Let's just kill the whole main cast except for like Rey and Kylo, and then just start just
scorched earth,
right? Because I mean, like they're already copying the original trilogy format, right? The Force Awakens, it starts on a desert planet, and then they got a big Death Star, a really big one this time, and this one is similar, where it ends more where the bad guys are slightly in the lead in the end of it, kind of like Empire, and there's a white desolate planet with speeders attacking really big walkers, and like we get very similar.
I loved the gorilla walkers.
They're very cool. But again, they do feel like just real big AT-ATs, and it feels like they're just trying to redo. Yeah, this is overall like
retread.
But I think Disney has gone away from that recently, which I think is great. But again, it's like trying to remake capture the essence of the original trilogy and kind of forget. They sometimes try to push against the prequels. Yeah, because a lot of people making them were in the group that didn't like the prequels when they came out. Yeah, a lot of people in production I know of, but thankfully they've realized that a lot of people do like the prequels now, and so they don't use any of a lot of the aliens and stuff from the prequels in these movies at all. Yeah, and now they do in like the shows and stuff.
And I think it's very much like Doctor Who, where the one you grew up with, that's your Star Wars. So the people that their first experience, the prequels, like I totally get why they, why you would attach yourself to them, because visually they're awesome. It's its very own thing. Yep. It's, but for somebody who grew up with the, 4 through 6, those prequels felt off. Mm-hmm. In whatever way you want to discuss it. Since I probably lean more that way than not, I could go into that, but that's another one. Sure. Even from design language, but
again, I think so. Like George Lucas, right? He made the original trilogy, then he made the prequels, feeling a very different feel. Yes, right. The idea was to be different feel because it's a different era of Star Wars. Right. But then you have the sequels, which I feel like are trying to recapture the original trilogy instead of trying to be their own exact thing. Right. Like obviously we have modern day technology and stuff and they feel different, but it almost feels like they're not trying to be like their own trilogy. Like they are trying to recapture only the original trilogy feels how it felt.
Yeah, I definitely feel like 7, 8, and 9 are trying to attach itself to the end of 6. Yeah. Tighter than say 1 through 3 to 4. And so, it's one of those things like, okay, if we make it like the ones that were really successful, we'll make more money. Yep. So if we lean that way, it's safe. Yep.
Which I get because it's a company now making this.
Right. It's a business.
Instead of just a guy.
Right. But even then, it was a business. It was still a business. You still have to make money. You still have to figure out how you're going to make it, spend the money to make the movie so that you can make money back. Mm-hmm. He was able to sell the company for billions of dollars. Right. So it's not unsuccessful business.
Correct.
But when it's a corporation instead of a person,
Yeah.
George was worried about story. He
Yep.
was worried about the end result, the technology. Whereas Disney's, they want profits for their investors.
Correct.
And so the best way to do that is play it safe.
Yep.
What do we know people love about Star Wars? Let's put more of that in it.
Yep.
And I feel like that also is why The Last Jedi is jarring, because it feels like it didn't play that way.
Yeah.
It wanted to do something different. It just got sandwiched between two things that were supposed to feel safe.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it definitely falls in the era of Star Wars, like Lucasfilm, when they didn't have a ton of like set people that were like supposed to be over the whole process,
Right?
Like they do now, because they have Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Granted, people don't like Filoni now, I guess, all of a sudden. I don't know what happened there, but I learned that recently.
That's too bad.
Whatever. I don't care. If you don't like Dave, whatever, I don't really care. It doesn't, you like whatever you want. But having at least one person over the creative aspect and making everything feel like Star Wars, I think has helped.
Yes.
And has made the newer projects all feel more coherent and more Star Warsy. I think it's helping. And I think The Last Jedi falls in that era of when they were still figuring things out. They had Kathleen
blueprint.
Kennedy, and they had they had a name to everyone to hate. Everyone hated Kathleen Kennedy because that's the only person we knew in Disney and in like Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
But that's just because it's good of them not to put a bunch of people's names forward for everyone to hate. She just took it's like the president of the United States. Like half the country's going to hate you. It's the same thing with Kathleen Kennedy.
It's like Kevin Feige in the Marvel movies. You know, he has been there from Iron Man on, and having that one creative voice or one person that can say yes or no to something, and having both the business and the storytelling expertise, I think helps find a directive. You're always going to have missteps or unexpected wins, but I think those 7, 8, and 9 definitely feel like they needed somebody there for that.
Some sort of it definitely felt it. You could tell that when they made The Force Awakens, just rewatching them, like they didn't just write the whole story down.
Right.
Like I think they had ideas and like concepts of what like J.J. Abrams wanted like Rey's parents to be. Yeah. But then like not having like a set in stone. It was more like let's see how it does, and then we'll workshop it from there. Let's see how people react. Okay, they liked it. They liked this part and this part. This is what the focus group liked. Love to get on those one of these days. They just hire me. I can make some. I can help.
I feel like most Star Wars fans feel that way. Like I would make better choices.
Yep, I would. Just to put the record straight, I would have made better choices.
Good to know.
100%. I'm my final thing is just I still feel like they should have had Rian Johnson do a standalone movie, and it would have. I think if they started with him, like if he was the one that was between The Force Awakens and he did like something, people would be like, "Oh, sweet, let's have him do another one." Like that was pretty sweet. Yeah. But like, it was just too much. It was too many expectations subverted.
Well, and I'm just curious what that other one would have looked like, because I know some script pages got out or some descriptions about what it was going to be under. I think it was Colin Trevorrow was supposed to direct it originally.
Yeah, I think so.
Who did Jurassic World and some other ones, but then I think he had a movie that tanked and then they let him go or something. So I don't understand Hollywood. I think the only thing that you gave me was about the Sith hole or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to talk about it, really. Yeah, she goes in the Sith hole, and then it's just like a bunch of mirrors of herself or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and
how do you feel about it?
I think that reinforces it's just her. There's no reason
for sure.
But I think that plays into her fear that she has no family, just like, with Luke, when he went into the tree or whatever in was it Empire?
Yep.
Where it's his face under the Vader mask. I think that's a very similar, trying to do something similar.
Yeah.
That it plays into their fear.
I think most people did not understand what was happening when they watched it.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't as clear as, Yoda saying, "Hey, you're going to face your fears in there."
Yeah.
I think it kind of And that's, I think, a fine line to walk. Rian Johnson, I feel, doesn't like to spoon feed his audiences.
Yeah.
Like, this is what's happening. This is the description. This is
Yeah.
respects the audience's intelligence. But I
Sure.
think you can do that to a fault where you're like, wait, was I supposed to understand what was happening there? And I think that kind of rides the line with this.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing with me, where I feel like everyone should know, who all these people are. Everyone should know Max Rebo. Everyone should know Cy Snoodles. Like everyone,
Right.
These are like the main characters in my brain. So like when you're in production of making something, like everyone's like all hyping each other up. I would imagine, and just like this is a great idea. It makes sense. We all understand it.
Let's do it.
But when it comes to something like that, where it's supposed to be like, for most people, it's just like, okay, what?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, cool.
The
She was
snapping.
nice. She was a mirror dimension. Like,
Right.
so like most people, I think, were just kind of left like, okay.
That definitely
more
didn't
confused.
play to a broader audience.
Yeah.
I feel like that played to people who were on track with the Star Wars deep dive.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, on my first watch, I was trying to figure it out. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is trying to say. I don't know. I was like, I don't know what's going on, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, time lapse of stuff. It's cool. It's fine. Sith stuff, dark side. That's why I
That's a
felt
great
watching.
way to wrap up there. Just
That
like
just-
really final.
That was very.
Dark side
so if
stuff.
anyone's listening, you can understand the dark side hole now. I don't know. I get the idea of like it's showing that like it in my mind at the end where she is nobody. It kind of like it solidified it when Kylo said it, and like in the Force vision or whatever it was, kind of showed her that's what it's saying. Like it's okay to be it's just you.
Yeah.
Like I think if they were just going for it, they could have like. And I guess they didn't want to touch it. Like, just give her a flashback of them like leaving her in like in a mean way, and just like give it like they are nobody almost, or like I don't know. But it's just like it was too like
It was too abstract, I think.
it was too abstract, which like Star Wars does in like the shows and stuff, and like the animated shows, which is like fine. But like because they're for kids, they normally like this is the world between worlds, and this is what it's for, and so like. I think everyone's used to that type of content when it's just like, okay, a bunch of mirrors or something.
Yeah.
I've seen this in my grandparents' house. They always have two mirrors. You used to look at yourself infinitely. Like, I know how this works.
This is like an elevator.
Yeah. So, like, I think it's another thing that just, like, was more question marks on the movie that I think just added to the overall distaste for everyone in it. But anyways, thank you for joining. If you made it this far, go ahead and leave us a review if you're on Spotify. If you're not, whatever.
Very friendly, very welcome.
I'm very friendly to all my followers. Thank you for joining, and as always, may the Force be with you always.